Hey guys, it's me Kevin, and today I'm doing another A-League video, and this time I'm reviewing round 15, our previous round of the A-League season. Today, sad day, as Markus Babbel doesn't have a job anymore. Markus Babbel, after leading the Western Sydney Wanderers for a year and a half, has been sacked after just 10 wins and 8 draws and 23 losses in his year and a half in charge. This is the third straight week where a coach has been sacked following Ernie Merrick and Marco Kurz in the last 2 weeks. A year and a half. For soccer terms, that seems like quite a bit of time to turn the fortunes of a team around. In AFL, that's really short, and coaches would just be yelling at the board if it happened in the AFL. But in soccer, it seems like quite a while, a year and a half, and yeah, I guess what the Wanderers thought, I guess the thing with the Wanderers, their squad, they have players like Duke, Muller, Lopa, Georgievski, a lot of players you think would make up a very talented squad, but it seemed like the Wanderers have been underachieving. Also, they signed a former Bundesliga Golden Boot winner, Alex Meyer, and he only kicked 1 goal in 12 games, so that was a very big disappointment for the Wanderers. They have just released him. They have signed Cox. I forgot his first name. Whatever his first name is, sorry. But they're hoping he can replace Meyer and do a lot better of a job than him. Now, the Wanderers will be coached by caretaker by Jean-Paul Dimarini. Whether the Wanderers get a breath of fresh air and improve with that talented squad, or whether they continue to post poor results, remains to be seen. But in terms of Newcastle and Melbourne, it hasn't had a good immediate impact. So, yeah, it might not seem like the best solution, but time will only tell, and we'll see who the Wanderers appoint as their next head coach. I will make a separate video regarding coaches and the sacking of coaches and how frequent it is, but I'll get to that in another video. Let's look at Sunday night's game between the Wanderers and the Glory, which turned out to be Babbel's last. So it started off with Bruno Fornaroli for Perth Glory kicking Ziella and getting booked with a yellow card before he kicked a goal, and Daniel Lopa could not. He got a touch to the ball, but let it go. And pretty much that 5th minute goal was the only goal of the game. Well, real goal. Joel Chianese got rubbed off twice by the VAR for being in an offside position. The first in the 27th minute and the second in the 76th. Meanwhile, the Wanderers had their own chance to level the scores with Perth Glory with, I think it was Yeboah, kicked a goal, or what looked like to be a goal in the 56th minute, but it turned out to be a handball on VAR, and was after a lot of discussion and a lot of confusion between the referee and the VAR, the goal was chalked off eventually. So overall, that 5th minute goal was the only goal out of the 4 that actually stood on the day. For Perth Glory, they have now won 6 games in a row, which is a club record for them. And they sit in 2nd spot, 2 points adrift from 2nd place Melbourne City. And they just so conveniently play them next week. So essentially, Melbourne City and Perth Glory will be facing off next week for the 2nd position spot. And also keep in mind that Glory do have a game in hand at the moment. Meanwhile, for the Wanderers, their loss against the Glory means they've only won 1 game out of their last 11 and puts them 4 points adrift of 6th place Adelaide. Whilst Perth broke an outright record over the weekend, Wellington Phoenix record equaling 9-game undefeated streak came to an end, losing to Brisbane Roar, and it was their first loss since their round 4 loss to Melbourne City. And that was despite dominating possession, 57% to 42 for the Roar, whilst also having 20 shots on goal compared to the Roar's 15. In the 27th and 42nd minute, respectively, both Cerrito and Taylor kicked the ball and it hit the post. And if both of those had decided to hit the net, then Wellington would have won 2-1. Now, that's not to say that Brisbane Roar didn't have its own missed shots. Whilst Dylan Wenzel-Hills had a moment of brilliance in the 69th minute to break the deadlock and put Brisbane Roar up 1-0, he should have had another assist, making a really good run out of the midfield, only to pass it to Brad Inman, who missed the shot. It went out way wide, so basically it could have easily been a 2-2 draw, essentially. Ufuk Talay was so confused how Wellington lost that game that he could only explain that it was God that won the game for Brisbane. Also, in reference that Robbie Fowler's nickname was God, so yeah, he made the comment, God was on God's side. Now, what do we can say about that? Is it finally starting to look sunny side up for Brisbane Roar? After dominating in most of their games in the early part of the season, remember, they lost all but one of their losses by just 1 goal, whilst also registering the most amount of draws in the competition so far. They are undefeated in their last 4 games, and their last 3 games in particular have been quite good for Brisbane, to say the least. They had a come-from-behind win against the Wanderers. They had a 2-2 draw against second-place Melbourne City, whilst also defeating an informed Wellington side who are looking to break the record for their longest undefeated run. So, is it finally looking like that Brisbane will finally start to get some wins going their way and get some luck going their way? And can they make the top 6? To be honest, I predicted the Brisbane to be inconsistent, but I thought they were within a shot of making the top 6. One thing though, where is Roy O'Donovan? He didn't even play this game, so is it looking like doom and gloom for the former Newcastle star? Meanwhile, for Wellington, it seems like their injury woes might be catching up to them, but at the same time, they've never played well at Suncorp Stadium in the first place. So that might be a good sign for Wellington fans that that game was just an out-of-the-ordinary loss, and that once they return back to Westpac Stadium, they should return to their woody ways. They also play Newcastle, so I don't think I don't think Wellington, it's panic stations for them. I think they just had a one-off loss. And David Ball has come back, albeit as a substitution, but that's a good sign for a player that got injured 2 weeks ago against the Mariners. So, yeah, hopefully it's all good for him. Alex Rufer will be the one to look out whether he plays, because he's been out for quite a while. The Central Coast Mariners' inconsistency continues. After winning 3-2 to Melbourne Victory, Central Coast Mariners concede 3 goals to Western United in the first 20 minutes, only for neither team to score for the rest of the game. Also, what seemed more startling was that Central Coast Mariners outshot United 4-3 in those first 20 minutes, yet United scored off all 3 of those goals. And disaster continues for Kai Rouse as he scores yet another own goal, and it's the second week in a row that Rouse has scored an own goal. The first he did it against Victory last week, whilst Barisha has scored a brace. Unfortunately, it's not all celebration for Western United. Their captain, Alessandro Diamandi, got tripped by a Central Coast defender in the 27th minute, and he looks like to have sustained a serious ankle injury. He didn't play any further part in the game and was substituted off immediately after the incident. Whilst we don't have a complete update on the extent of his injury, it doesn't look good to the naked eye of a human, and it does seem that Diamandi will be out for an extended period of time, which is a significant blow for the inconsistent Western United side, who are looking to make their first finals appearance in their first season. Let's hope for Western United and Diamandi that the injury is not as serious as it first looked. On Saturday night, Melbourne City saw off a plucky Newcastle side, winning 2-0, thanks to goals to Craig Nooney in the 8th minute and a Jamie McLaren penalty in the 66th minute. Spanish international striker Michael Suzareta also made a cameo appearance during the last 5 minutes of the match. Jamie McLaren's penalty was his 13th goal, which makes him level in the Golden Boot race with Adam Lafondre. Although remember, Sydney FC didn't play this week, and Adam Lafondre has a game in hand to catch up the deficit, has a game to break the deadlock against McLaren. It's going to be interesting how the two race off this year. Also, Melbourne City remain 2 points ahead of Perth Glory. However, them and Perth Glory face off on Saturday night next week, and the winner of that match will directly go into second spot. So an important clash for both Perth Glory and Melbourne City is coming up next Saturday. As for Newcastle Jets, their season is quickly spiralling out of control. They still sit on rock bottom and are 3 wins outside of the top 6. So their finals aspirations are all but over, and Newcastle might just have to start focusing on a rebuild for the rest of the season. Both teams were under immense pressure going into Friday night's original rivalry clash, and it was Ben Halloran's 35th minute scramble goal which saw Adelaide United win the match 1-0. For Melbourne Victory, it was their first match under interim head coach Carlos Savaca, who is taking the spot of Marco Kurz after he got sacked earlier in the week. I will talk about sacked coaches in a later episode, in a later video. I'll get to that. Adelaide United winning that match broke a 4-game losing streak, and it was their first win since their round 9 win against Newcastle back in December, and it also breaks a new record for Adelaide United, having won their 4th straight original rivalry clash against Victory. Things don't get much easier for Craig Deans or Carlos Savaca. Newcastle have to play Wellington at Sky Stadium next week, whilst for Melbourne, they have to play top of the ladder Sydney FC, albeit at Amy Park. So, the question will arise, was sacking their coaches the right thing to do? Was that going to improve their season and rejuvenate them and get them into the top 6, or was it just going to keep them out of the finals picture even more? That question will continue to rise in the coming weeks. And I will be making a video on sack coaches, as I said, later this week. Things do look a little bit better for Western Sydney as they have the bye this week and play 10th place Central Coast, albeit at Central Coast Stadium, but it is a good chance for the Wanderers to rejuvenate their season. Now, in this next segment, I'm going to be asking a bunch of questions about the rest of the season. How will the Jets, Wanderers and Victory go under caretaker coaches? And will they do a good job at replacing him properly? And also, can they improve, or will they just keep falling further and further out of finals contention? How will Western United go without captain Alessandro Diamanti? Who will finish second next week? Remember, Melbourne City and Perth Glory face off in that all-important Saturday night clash. And who will be in second spot after that clash? Have Adelaide finally broken their 4-game losing streak, and can they beat Western United? Or was last week's clash just a fluke, and will the pressure continue to mount on Kurt-Jan Verbeek? Can Melbourne Victory bounce back? Because 2 weeks ago, I was talking him up to potentially scrape into the top 6. Now, it seems like they keep falling further and further down. Will they stop that, given that they've got players like Toivonen, Cruz, Naboo? And to be honest, they are missing Toivonen badly at the moment. Can they improve, or will they just continue falling? And will Newcastle, do they have any hope this season, or is it just been an absolute disaster for them? For the Wanderers, can they finally realise their potential now that Babbel's gone? Or do they just keep falling further and further below? And lastly, have Brisbane Roar finally taken a turn for the better? Was last week's game against Wellington just a fluke? All these questions we will see later on in the season. So Sydney still, despite the bye, remain far ahead, 8 points clear on top of the ladder, with Melbourne City, Perth Glory, Wellington, Western United and Adelaide rounding out the top 6. Then Brisbane Roar just sit 2 points outside the top 6, with Melbourne Victory, Western Sydney, Central Coast and Newcastle trailing. For next week's games, it starts on Friday night at 5:15 when Wellington and Newcastle clash at Sky Stadium, which I'm tipping Wellington to win. Then Melbourne Victory and Sydney FC face off on Friday 7:30 at Amy Park, I'm tipping Sydney. Then on ABC, the 5 o'clock match between Central Coast and Brisbane at Mariner Stadium. I'm tipping Brisbane Roar to win that. Whilst the all-important clash between Melbourne City and Perth Glory at Amy Park at 7:30 p.m, the second on the ladder clash. I'm tipping Perth Glory purely on the form they've gone, purely because I've still got question marks about City's inconsistency. And on Sunday, the first ever A-League match at Wellington Oval, which is the Western Bulldogs' home ground. So, yeah, it seems like they've got some sort of link between the two clubs, funny enough. Wellington United versus Adelaide at Wellington Oval at 6 o'clock. I honestly reckon this match is going to end in a draw, but I could be wrong. So, anyway, what did you think about this video? This is a trial video, but I'm hoping to make this a permanent series next year. I'll be doing a bunch of these throughout the rest of the season and hopefully permanently start next year. So tell me what you thought of the video down below. Tell me what I could do to improve and tell me what you liked about this video. And also please subscribe. Please check out my other content. I've got AFL content. I'm starting to do A-League content. And I'll be doing a lot more content this year. So yeah, expect to see a lot of that. So please subscribe, please like this video, and please share this channel around with others, because I'll tell you something. Do you want to know why I'm doing videos like these, the A-League videos? Because unlike the AFL, which has the Saturday night, the rounds so far, and the access all areas on the Sunday night, which is done on the AFL website, there seems to be no A-League round review on a free platform. Yes, of course, there's Mark Bosnich and Adam Peacock and all that on Fox Sports, but you have to pay for that. So this is the free version. Probably nowhere near as good, but yeah, hey, it's something. So whilst there's nothing else to watch on this topic, watch it all here for free. And get some expert analysis. So anyway, I'll probably make another video next week, and I'll see you later. Bye.